We all have these everyday routines that we basically just run on autopilot. But what happens when the habits we barely even notice are actually acting as a silent enemy to the very organ keeping us alive? Well, in this explainer, we're going to be unpacking 7 subtle heart health mistakes that millions of people make every single day, often completely unaware that they're even doing it. Okay, let's dive right into this. 100,000. I really want you to think about that number for a second. That is the sheer scale of your heart's silent, unthanked daily workload. Every single day, your heart beats nearly 100,000 times. It's literally been doing this since before you were even born. It just works silently in the background, faithfully keeping you moving, breathing, and living. And it never once asks for a break or any recognition. It is an absolute powerhouse. But, that brings us to a pretty sobering question. Are your daily habits silently damaging it? Because the heart is just so incredibly reliable, it's remarkably easy to take the whole thing for granted. We kind of just assume that as long as it's beating and we don't physically feel anything wrong, everything must be perfectly fine. But that assumption, that's exactly where the danger lies. The routines you think are totally harmless, or at least, not that bad, might actually be a quiet, compounding threat to your faithful heart. So let's get into section 1, the I feel fine trap. We are deeply conditioned to wait for physical pain before we actually take action. If your knee hurts, you stop running, right? If you have a headache, you take some medication. But waiting for your heart to physically hurt is a really dangerous game. And that brings us right to mistake number 1, ignoring your blood pressure. High blood pressure has this notorious nickname in the medical community. They call it the silent killer. And it absolutely earns that title because it usually causes absolutely no symptoms whatsoever. You can feel perfectly fine, full of energy, just going about your day, while inside, this excessive pressure is slowly damaging your arteries. It's forcing your heart to overwork day in and day out. Knowing your blood pressure is honestly one of the simplest, most direct ways to prevent a future heart attack or stroke, yet it's so easily overlooked simply because we feel fine. Which leads us to mistake number 2, and this involves something called lipoprotein A, or LPA for short. A lot of us get our routine blood work done, we see a normal cholesterol report, and we think, awesome, I'm completely in the clear. But a standard normal cholesterol report is sometimes a bit of an illusion. It doesn't always tell the whole story. LPA is actually an inherited risk factor. If you have it, it can quietly increase your chances of experiencing a heart attack or stroke, even if you maintain a totally healthy lifestyle otherwise. Because of this hidden danger, cardiovascular experts are now heavily recommending that literally every adult get their LPA measured at least once in their lifetime. And honestly, this leads us to a massive misconception, which we'll call mistake number 6. We really need to completely dispel the myth of sudden heart disease. Heart disease doesn't just suddenly appear out of nowhere on a random Tuesday. It starts with quiet plaque buildup. Then, decades pass. Plaque just builds and builds inside your arteries, long before you ever feel even a twinge of chest pain. And tragically, for a lot of people, the very first symptom they ever feel is step 3, the heart attack itself. The best treatment absolutely has to begin long before that first symptom ever arrives. Moving right along to section 2, your daily lifestyle illusions. So we just talked about the physiological traps inside our bodies, but now we need to shift our focus to behavioral misconceptions. We constantly trick ourselves into believing our habits are healthy enough. And this is mistake number 3, assuming your workout offsets everything else. On one side, you have an hour at the gym. You sweat. You work hard. You feel fantastic. But on the flip side, you spend the next 8 hours sitting at a desk, in a car, or just lounging on the couch. Research explicitly shows that prolonged sitting drastically reduces healthy blood flow, alters your metabolism, and drives up your cardiovascular risk. And here is the kicker. That happens even in people who exercise regularly. You literally cannot just out-train a heavily sedentary lifestyle. It doesn't work like that. The absolute crucial takeaway here is that your heart loves movement, not just workouts. We have to stop viewing exercise as this little box we check off in the morning before just freezing in a chair for the rest of the day. The heart is a muscle, and it requires continuous, regular movement woven throughout your daily life to truly thrive. Standing up, taking short walking breaks, stretching, this constant, gentle demand on your cardiovascular system is exactly what keeps it functioning optimally. Then we have mistake number 4, which is treating sleep like it's some optional commodity. Let me be clear, sleep isn't a luxury, it's heart medicine. We need to entirely reframe how we view rest. Think about it. During the day, while you're awake and active, your heart doesn't recover. The only time it truly gets to recover and heal is while you are sleeping. When you get poor or irregular sleep, you are actively increasing your blood pressure, spiking your internal inflammation, and driving up your risk of heart disease. So yeah, sleep is completely non-negotiable for cardiovascular health. All right, let's look at section 3, clues in your DNA. So this brings us to mistake number 5. We often view family history with this real sense of dread, almost like it's a predetermined fate we just can't escape. But genes are not destiny. They're extremely valuable information. If your parents or your siblings developed heart disease at a young age, well, yes, your own risk is statistically higher. That's just a fact. But knowing that fact is actually your greatest advantage. It takes the blindfold off. Armed with this knowledge, you and your doctor can take highly targeted, specific actions super early on, long before any real problems ever have the chance to develop. It's really all about taking control of the narrative. Which brings us to our final segment, section 4, the power of small shifts. It is so incredibly easy to believe that the tiny choices we make on a random Wednesday afternoon have basically no bearing on our long-term health. That's mistake number 7. But let's look at the negative side of the ledger for a second. Skipping a walk because you're too busy. Choosing processed foods every day for lunch just out of convenience. Smoking or vaping. Brushing off chronic stress like it's just a normal part of your job. Or simply missing your annual checkups because, hey, you feel fine. Individually, isolated on a single day, each one of these choices seems so incredibly minor, right? You won't feel a difference tomorrow. But day after day, year after year, these choices quietly compound. They silently weave together to damage the heart over time. But hey, here is the really encouraging news. The exact same mathematical rule applies to your positive choices. Adding a daily walk, prioritizing better, more consistent sleep, actually knowing your blood pressure and cholesterol numbers, eating more whole foods. These aren't monumental, life-upending changes. They're small, accessible, simple actions. And just like those bad habits, these positive choices also add up dramatically. They compound over time to significantly and measurably reduce your cardiovascular risk. So it's not about being perfect. It's really just about making slightly better decisions, consistently. And that brings us to our final thought for this explainer. Your heart has been working for you since before you were even born. It hasn't taken a single day off. So will you return the favor? Protecting your heart isn't about making one massive perfect decision. It's about knowing your numbers, asking about hidden factors like LPA, moving your body, and getting the rest you need every single day. Start today. And honestly, if the information in this explainer opened your eyes, please share it with someone you love. One conversation really could change or even save a life. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.